Hello, lore nerds, and welcome to the episode where I talk about the Empire of Netheril. So, the Netherese were a powerful magocratic, meaning that only magic users had power, society that existed up until not long before the Dale Reckoning, from negative 3830 to negative 339 DR. The empire was split into two groups: the nobles of High Netheril, who lived in the floating cities, and the commoners of Low Netheril, who lived in domains on the ground. During their peak, they covered much of Faerun and were the height of human civilization. They discovered the ancient Nether Scrolls, powerful scrolls detailing magical theory that were created by the Suruk, which are the reptilian creator races of old that I did discuss in my creator races video. Shout out to that video. It gives a little bit of context over who they were. And I might have said something about the Nether Scrolls in that one. I'm not sure. Check it out to find out. They also learned how to create mythilars, which finally I will explain what the hell these magical orbs are. So the mythilars that the Netherese made were huge, 150-foot diameter magical orbs that glowed with what looked like sunlight. So basically, they looked like a mini sun. They allowed mages to make powerful magical items without draining their life force, which helped the Netherese trade and economy. They could also create powerful magical effects, such as being used to keep their giant floating cities floating in the air. That's how they did that. They used the mythilars to make their cities float. Unfortunately, nearly all of these mythilars were destroyed by Karsus's Folly, which we'll get to in a bit. So, as previously mentioned, Netheril was split into two sorts of classes: the High Netheril in floating cities, and the Low Netheril in the domains on the ground. The main distinction was that those in High Netheril were all very powerful mages, each, mastered how to make mythilars, all that kind of stuff, while being in Low Netheril was more commoners, and well, most of them were still pretty powerful mages, but not quite to the standard of High Netheril. Low Netheril wasn't a terrible place either. The ruling Arcanist could alter the environment and weather on a whim, and people traveled using flying mounts and magic, which is pretty cool. However, in saying that, it did kinda suck, because the higher class viewed those in Low Netheril as lesser and often used them for labor or magic experiments. So yeah, that's kinda does make it a sort of bad place to live. Oh, and the Netherese even literally discovered space travel, and that's sort of being able to leave Toro, which is really cool. But it also led to them being attacked by the Illithids, so they just ceased those activities shortly after. Even even at the height of Netherese society and power, they didn't want to have to deal with the Illithids. That's pretty terrifying. And now we finally get to Karsus's Folly. Karsus was a brilliant and talented wizard born in negative 696 DR, and he made his own floating city after a short while. He was extremely capable and became a powerful wizard very early into his life. After some time, magical residue seeped into the earth from the Netheril cities, which attracted a subterranean race known as the Faerun. These beings grew tired of it and attacked Netheril, using their terrifying ability to absorb both life and magic. This, was horrible for the Netherese, who were entirely based upon magic, so they were kind of screwed, and it led to a terrible war. They turned lush areas into barren wastelands and caused the Netherese to flee. Karsus had a plan, however. He devised a powerful 12th level spell that would allow him to mantle the divinity of the goddess of magic Mistral. This spell was a 6-hour long ritual requiring preparations such as using the stone filled gizzard of a gold dragon and a mixture of Tarrasque blood and 12-headed Hydra bile just to enchant one of the components. So that's sort of the level of complexity and difficulty that this spell had around it. This, unfortunately and kind of predictably, backfired immensely. Immediately after casting the spell, Karsus's body swelled up with the massive influx of divine power, and his mind filled with immeasurable knowledge. And he realized too late his mistake. The war between Netheril and the Faerun was tearing apart the weave, and now because of this spell, Mistral could not repair it, and the magic went wild and unpredictable. So, to save the weave, Mistral, let's say, sacrificed herself, temporarily causing magic to cease. The floating cities of Netheril then fell to the ground because they had no magic to keep them up, and Karsus also died after that connection was severed, and his body was petrified in his bloated state. The last thing he felt before death was the heartbreak of regret at seeing what he had done to his people. In moments, the goddess reincarnated as Mistra, who promptly remade the weave. She then also altered the rules of magic so that no spell of 10th level or higher was able to work. She basically deemed that mortals were not responsible enough to use that kind of power, which, yeah, no, that's kind of true. She also managed to save 3 of the floating cities, Anoria, Azram, and Hlondas, before they crashed into the ground. Priests of the goddess were given visions of the event as a warning to not allow this to happen again. This was the end of the Netherese Empire, the height of magical civilization and probably the best humans have ever been. The devastation of the Faerun created the Anorok Desert, but they were defeated by mysterious aberrations known as the Sharns, who have a little bit of a history with the Faerun. Netherese survivors spread out and joined other civilizations, and that's kind of where their story ends. There are later apparent resurgences of the Netherese Empire. It has different enclaves, those floating cities reappeared from other dimensions and stuff, but I can cover that another time. This is the story of the main original Netherese Empire and Karsus's Folly. So that would conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time with whatever I cover next week.